for this. We've just been really busy trying to get the serious SIP modifications done and out the door, so we've been kind of hammering on that stuff recently.
And they are, or they're not quite out the door yet? Well, he's going to introduce.
Let me go ahead and introduce you. So good morning, everybody. My name is Jomo Stewart. We're just going to fudge it, call it. It's 8 a.m. Tuesday. I want to say, it's November 5th. We're here at FEDC. It's the Energy for All Alaska Task Force meeting, and our guest this morning is Nick Czarnecki. He's the FNSB Air Quality Manager. Let's see, Nick has worked on air quality issues for over 15 years, including experience with the FNSB, the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality, and for the engineering and environmental consulting firm Loam Walsh.
That's correct.
LLC. And Mr. Czarnecki has a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Wyoming. So we're very happy to have him and very lucky to have him here in the community. So, sir, if you would, the topic of today is actually, I've termed it as heating appliance conversion assistance.
Yes, and so thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me here to speak. I'm going to talk about the programs that the borough has going on right now. The first is the wood stove changeout program, and then the second is the proposed program that is going to switch out oil-fired boilers for gas and propane-fired boilers. So the wood stove changeout program, and I can get a compilation of all these numbers after the talk so that if you guys are interested in specifics, I can get them to you. The change-out program is funded by several different federal grants, and each of the federal grants have subtle differences in them. I'll kind of go over the general overview of each grant and then get into the performance of the wood stove change-out program. The 2016 Targeted Airshed Grant Award, it's a federal funding, was awarded for $2.47 million, and that was in 2017. After administrative costs, that left $2.35 million for changeouts for the program. The 2016 Targeted Airshed Grant, the eligible expenditures include removal of hydronic heaters, wood or coal stoves, and replacements of fireplaces with heating oil, hot water, district heat, electric, propane, or natural gas. The replacement of a wood or coal stove can be replaced with another wood-fired device, such as a cleaner, cordwood device that's equipped with a catalyst or a pellet device. Replacement of a hydronic heater is with, any of those options, including the wood stove with a catalytic heat control or a pellet hydronic heater. And in the 2016 grant, deed restrictions are required for a solid fuel burning appliance that is replaced with a device that uses natural gas, propane, home heating oil, or it's removed. There's also a cash payout for just straight up removal. The incentives are less, but you can just get cash for it. The 2017 Targeted Airshed Grant was for a total of $4 million. And after administrative costs, that left $3.43 million for conversions. The borough did not waive indirects for that grant, and so there was a larger chunk taken out for administrative costs, and those go into the borough general fund. Eligible expenditures for the 2017 grant are the same as the 2016 grant, but they no longer include any wood-to-wood options. So you can't do a wood stove for a pellet, or a wood stove for a wood stove with a catalyst. And in addition, the 2017 grant opened up a new eligible expenditure, which is the emergency backup generator. This can include battery backup systems and solar panels and generators. So it's a pretty wide-ranging category, and it's got lots of interesting options. The 2017 Targeted Airshed Grant required deed restrictions for all conversions. And the 2018 Targeted Airshed Grant was awarded for $5 million, which, after administrative costs, left $4.3 million for the project costs, because the borough, again, did not waive the indirects on this one. The program expenditures include an additional $3.4 million for the conversion program and $9 million for marketing education, and $900,000 for marketing education and outreach. And so we got a little bit of funding in there to help offset the borough's general fund contribution for the education outreach opportunities. And deed restrictions are required for those grants, for that grant as
So if
well.
you don't mind, you're moving really fast. May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with deed restrictions.
Yep.
Define.
Deed restriction is, there's a signed recordable document that is filed with the state recorder's office and that goes in and says if you have a house and you removed a wood stove and you got a oil-fired, an oil boiler upgrade, you would then sign a deed restriction. You'd go through the house and say, well, you had 3 stoves to begin with, but you only removed 1 with the program. That means you have 2 existing stoves in the house. The deed restriction says those 2 existing stoves are fine, but you cannot put any additional stoves in the house. And then that is filed with the state recorder's office, and it is typically looked at when you do property transactions when they do the title search. That answer the question on deed restriction?
So the new homeowner, if it was ever sold, the new homeowner would be so restricted.
Yes, the new homeowner would be restricted, and the reason for requiring deed restrictions is with the air shed, it's saturated because we have the inversions, so it's really easy to saturate the air shed, and there's just so many appliances out there, and there's so many emission points that we have to ensure permanent emission reductions. The deed restriction helps ensure that permanent emission reduction, and because it's a voluntary program, only the folks that are willing to do it are, going to come in and sign that. But then, yes, it does restrict future property owners.
Okay.
And this is essentially promised in the Serious SIP too, right? I mean, it's one of those check marks to say we're going to improve. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and it's a requirement to get the federal funding because EPA, these grants are scored on a competitive basis, and having quantifiable, permanent, and enforceable emission reductions is the #1 criteria. So a program without deed restrictions would most likely not get funded.
Great.
Now, regarding the 2017, you listed there was a difference between what could be funded by the 16 and the 17 money.
Yes.
You said not, like, say, an old dirty wood stove to a cleaner.
The biggest change is the 2016 award. You can do wood-to-wood conversion, so you can get an old wood stove and you can replace it with a new wood stove.
Or pellet stove.
Or a pellet stove, solid fuel burning appliance. The 2017 and 2018 targeted airshed grants are conversion programs, and so they are targeting just the conversion, so just getting that appliance out of the population. So you can't put another solid fuel burning appliance in with the funding. The thought process behind that is that this is a voluntary program again, and we know that one of the biggest issues with wood stoves is that it requires every homeowner to have the expertise and the willingness to operate it correctly and use the correct fuel. Otherwise, you can get a 2-gram stove can emit 30 grams per hour, and they're finding that hydronic heaters can emit up to 1.5 kilograms per hour if they're used improperly. And so what that does is it just removes that variable for the folks that are willing to take advantage of it, and then it gets us the maximum emission reductions that we can. And this program is all managed around maximizing emission reductions, getting the benefit for the community, and trying to get us out of the non-attainment. Any other just kind of basic questions on the grants?
So those are no longer available, funds?
No,
Already?
they are still available, and I will get into the specifics here in a second with how much is available with those.
So it's actually more about a proper accounting management.
Yeah, because
you still have residuals of some funds that might be used for a certain purpose.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. We have 3 different pots of money, and we manage those pots of money so that we can save the wood-to-wood money just for wood-to-wood, and then we can use the conversion money on the conversions. Again, it's just it's managed to maximize the air quality benefits. And so, yeah, with that, I can jump into the numbers of where we're sitting at on those. So as of October 1st, 2019, the targeted airshed grant, the 2016 targeted airshed grant, this is the one that can do wood to wood, has completed 192 changeouts, conversions, removals, and repairs for a total of 1.3 million and emission reductions of 18.5 tons per year. And so out of the 2.3 million, 1.3 million has been spent, leaving approximately 1 million left in the fund that can spend on wood-to-wood conversions.
And what's the value of the, or the maximum value of the payout?
The maximum value of the payout, the incentive levels are based on, again, emission reductions. The more emission reductions that you get, the higher incentive levels that you have. And so the maximum that we would have for payout would be for a hydronic heater to natural gas or propane, and that's $14,000.
Aldous, so you said there's 1 million remaining wood to wood?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a way, does that, two questions, does that have a sunset? And the other, would there be a way to change that from wood to wood to wood to gas? Can you go backwards to that grant?
Yeah, those are good questions. And so the sunset, these grants have to be expended within 5 years. The 2016 grant was actually awarded, that's the year we applied for it, and it was actually awarded and appropriated in 2017. And so we have 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. We have until 2022 to expend that funding. And we can go, we can use that funding for doing wood to gas conversions. That option, it's an eligible expenditure right now, and we actually prioritize towards that. And we're seeing that we are getting more folks when they look at how much funding, how much money they can get for going to gas or oil or a cleaner burning appliance, that a lot of folks choose to do that.
So if I came to you and wanted to convert to gas, would you then go back all the way back and use the 2016 money first?
No, we wouldn't use the 2016 money first. What we do is we basically have projections where we have to keep on track on a quarterly basis to ensure that we're running at the proper burn rate for all of these grants. And right now, what we do is we run every 4th conversion. If we get 4 conversions, we'll run 3 of them through the 2017 grant, and then 1 would go through the 2016 grant. And that's if we haven't had wood-to-wood changeouts that have taken up that spot, and then we adjust accordingly. So, yeah, we keep a pretty close eye on that to make sure we have the proper burn rate.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But for, okay, so the maximum value, say $14,000,
Mm-hmm.
what would be like, say, the average on a wood to wood?
The average on a wood-to-wood is sitting at about $4,500 right now, and the average expenditure is sitting at about $7,200. And so that reflects that more people are choosing to go with the oil and gas options. And the 2017 grant, that one we've completed 61 conversions and removals through that grant for a total of $497,000. And emission reductions of 6.135 tons per year. A little less because we've had that grant for a year less time and just haven't expended as much funding out of it. And during quarter 3, 2019, I think this kind of speaks to some of the earlier questions. We had 43 total changeouts and conversions were completed, and conversions to a cleaner source of fuel continue as the most popular option, with 35 of the 43 changeouts in quarter 3, 2019 being conversions.
Is there any sort of way to convert or estimate tons per year to grams per milliliter or whatever it is?
Grams per hour?
No, well, no, it's
Oh,
ultimately
micrograms per meter cubed?
Yeah.
Yes, there is a way. It's air quality dispersion modeling.
Mm-hmm.
And we are actively working on trying to model the benefits of the wood stove changeout program with within one grid cell of the larger CMAC model. It'll probably be somewhere around the Hearst Road monitor. And that takes a lot of time and resources to do it, and so I would expect maybe February that we might have some results on that.
Is a cell a half mile square? I don't remember.
1.3 kilometers.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just, with the CMAC modeling, you know, they don't have much granularity, and we're looking at to look inside that single cell and see what's going on with the change-out program to model the benefits.
It's an interesting number, 1.3.
It's about a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, did you say that across the three grants, 17, 18, 19, the average draw on the grant was 7,200 for conversion from something to something?
Yes, and that includes the wood-to-wood change-outs, removals, and conversions. And to give you an idea of the incentive levels, the removals, hydronic heater removal is $5,000, a wood stove removal is $2,000. That's just a straight cash payout. And then, you know, a hydronic heater going to, home heating oil is $12,000, going to natural gas is $14,000. A wood stove to wood stove is $4,000. A wood stove to pellet stove is $5,000. A fireplace to natural gas or propane is $10,000. And when we look at all of the closed out transactions, that average comes in right about $7,200.
So if you, do you track wood to gas and have an average draw on the grants wood to gas?
We do. I don't have that number sitting right in front of me. It would be for the...
It would be helpful for us to know that, because we kick a lot of numbers around.
Yeah.
Some people want to inflate those, and some people want to deflate them.
What you're referring to, is that public?
This information? Yeah.
That sheet.
Oh, this sheet right here? Yeah, this is actually our quarterly reporting to EPA, and so I can provide that.
Can I go scan it now?
Yeah, and this is, where it's going to be confusing is I have two of these sheets, because I have them split out for each grant.
Oh, never mind.
And you have to kind of pull them both together to, you know, get the whole picture. Otherwise, you're just looking at, you know, one of the.
How about this? If someone were interested, they could call you.
Yes,
Bingo.
if someone were,
Okay.
there's so many numbers, we can put together the numbers. My question on which number you're interested in, would it be all of the gas conversions, because we do a lot of fireplaces to propane, or are you looking specifically for those folks that are putting in a natural gas boiler, so a whole house system, as opposed to just a room
Yes.
heater?
Michelle?
Yeah, all the natural gas.
All the natural gas?
And if it was broken down by appliance, that would be even frosting on the cake. The number we look for is that people say, well, it's going to cost $20,000 to convert my furnace, and I'm not going to do it, in spite of all the incentives.
So wouldn't it be interesting too if there's, I'm making this up, 15 fireplace to gas or whatever, and there's 117, you know, from oil to gas or something like that, to show there's some real enthusiasm. So both sides of the numbers are going to be interesting.
I would think we're focused on the boiler furnace component, but anything else that comes with that, we certainly would like that to be part of the report, part of the metric. Wilson, Joe?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
And I will say with the one caveat that we don't have all of the data, because we only collect receipts up to the incentive level that we provide. And so the missing data point that we have for your interest is when people go over that incentive level. We don't have a good handle on when they go over that.
So you go to the cap, and then you don't know what the out-of-pocket is over the cap.
Yes.
So I actually did the wood stove change-out program in my home. And so, no, it did not cover the full cost of either the fireplace insert or the freestanding unit. It greatly defrayed the cost. I want to say that it was something like, we got $4,000 worth of assistance on what was a total $6,000 bill, $5,000 bill. Either way, there was a little bit of, I had to pay some out of pocket, but again, it greatly defrayed the cost. But I see what you're saying is we're trying to ascertain the full cost of installing a natural gas furnace.
Eventually, we're gonna have to get to that number here.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly.
And that's where our data falls short, is we don't know, and we don't know which ones that folks paid extra out-of-pocket expenses on. We can comb through the data and find a few examples that we know were full reimbursements to give an idea, and it just varies so greatly because, for instance, a lot of folks are doing fireplace conversions. They'll put a propane insert in where their fireplace was, and then it renders it permanently inoperable, and they sign a deed restriction. And then, if they're just putting the propane insert in, then usually the $10,000 incentive covers it. But if they have to do a lot of fascia work and a lot of stone work around it, then that gets really pricey. And so it really varies greatly from individual to individual.
We've got enough to do without drilling down too far for us, because I think we'll build out the over-the-cap number as we march along here, but if you get us started on that, and just the average expenditure is a helpful number to start with.
Yep, we can.
Anything else,
Yeah, we can definitely put some of those numbers together. And I think the last piece on the change-out programs is current funding and where we sit. As of October 1st, 2019, the 2016 and 2017 targeted airshed grants sit at about $4.3 million. And of that $4.3 million, we have about $1 million that's currently encumbered in 105 applications that are moving through the process. And so that leaves about $3.3 million available for future change-outs. And then when we put the 2018 targeted airshed grant award on top of that, which is another $3.4 million, that leaves about $6.7 million available for future change-outs under the targeted airshed program. And just to give you an idea of our burn rate, projections show that we need to be spending about $350,000 per quarter to expend these grants in the required time frame. And our quarter closeouts for quarter 2 are $365,000. Our closeouts for quarter 3 are $346,000. And so it shows that we're on track to manage the expenditures of all 3 grants at the same time. All right.
Any more questions?
Any more questions on the wood stove change-out program? Then we can get into the new program.
I just want to make sure I heard you right. So as of today, our last accounting, there's $6.3 million left. Could be
6.7.
6.7 could be used, and not that I would encourage this, but could be used for something to gas.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And kind of switching gears and jumping to the ordinance that is going to go up in front of the Assembly in the next 2 weeks. The administration and the mayor's office, they wanted to use $1 million out of the line of credit that was extended to IGU, specifically for oil to gas conversions, because we do get a lot of interest in the office, and I'm sure that other folks can attest to this, that there's a lot of interest for people switching from their existing oil-fired boiler to a natural gas-fired boiler, and especially if they happen to be in an area that is served by IGU right now. And so that is the basic purpose of the ordinance and the appropriation that is going to go in front of the Assembly. And so this program will be will have eligible expenditures of heating oil, to oil, or to natural gas or propane. And we wanted to keep it open to both natural gas and propane so that folks that are not quite in service yet can go ahead and get that propane device installed, and then with a simple orifice change that's relatively inexpensive, they can then hook up to natural gas in the future. And so the program costs would be to help offset the cost of removing, replacing, or converting an appliance that's designed to use heating oil, and replacing or converting it to one that is going to use natural gas or propane. With this program, we are proposing, again, signed recordable deed restrictions that prohibit the change to go back to an oil-fired device, and they also prohibit future installations of solid fuel burning appliances. This is, to ensure that the funding that the borough spends does lead to permanent emission reductions. And then also from a regulatory standpoint, that does allow us to claim an SO2 credit in the SIP, which is going to be very important as we look down the road at the future regulations, and we are pretty light on sulfur emission reductions right now. The program will have a priority ranking where we're going to target the areas that have the highest emission so that we can get the maximum benefit for the community. The eligibility will be limited to within the air quality control zone boundary. So if you look up at that map, that little map right there, the purple and the blue areas are the air quality control zones. And one of the important things is that because this is only $1 million within this pot of funding, if the property has an eligible wood stove that does not meet the cleanest requirements that are within the Sirius SIP, then that homeowner will be referred to the wood stove changeout program so that they can take advantage of that pot of money instead of this more limited pot of money. That really goes to it. Basically, if somebody would come into us and say, hey, we want to change out our oil boiler, and we find out that they have an uncertified stove on their property, we're going to steer them toward the targeted airshed grant so that we can get them into that bigger pot of money and see better emission reductions.
So in this case, it would be referring them to that program to pay for the removal.
Yep, to pay for the removal.
And decommissioning of their of that wood appliance.
Yeah, because eventually all of the uncertified devices are going to have to go anyways, and so if they come in and they have one of those, then we can get them into the targeted airshed grant program, and potentially that homeowner could do both programs. They could, for example, do the targeted airshed to get rid of the uncertified device, get an emergency backup system with a battery backup and an automatic inverter switch, and then they could use this new funding to switch out their oil boiler for a natural gas, and then they're set up where they have natural gas and they have an emergency backup system. So there could be some really big benefits for homeowners that are in the air quality control zone and within the areas where we have the highest concentrations.
So, if I may, then I'll get you next, Ms. Hollow. So first of all, regarding the prioritization, do either of the targeted airshed or any of the targeted airshed grants have that kind of prioritization of use geographically?
Yes, they all have a prioritization matrix, and it starts with the air quality control zone. They have to be within the air quality control zone, and then based on the sniffer mapping and the PDRs, we have delineated hotspots of highest concentration, and that's where we try to target most of the funding, and folks are eligible for different incentives within the different hotspots in the prioritization.
Okay. And then regarding this battery backup, can you go into that a little bit? Like for what, if you're removing, so my pellet stove does require electricity for use.
Yep.
And obviously my furnace does also.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what these battery backups are for?
The battery backups, I guess the one that I have at my house is basically to run emergency systems within your house, and so I have a small bank of batteries down in the basement, and it'll power my oil boiler, my water pump, some lights, and the refrigerator, all the freezers, and just essentially get to choose which circuits that it supplies, and it'll last for about 18 hours without a recharge. It has an automatic inverter, so whenever the power trips, it automatically switches on those emergency systems so that they operate, and then you can, in mine, I can take out my generator if I have an extended power outage and plug it in and recharge the batteries. And so basically they just provide emergency backup systems, and it's really important for, your oil and gas boilers that require electricity to run.
Neat. But how do you tap into that? So again, what would I be giving up to get my battery back up?
That is only through the wood stove changeout program, so you'd have to give up a solid fuel burning appliance. A pellet stove, a wood stove, a coal-fired device, a hydronic heater.
Okay. So yeah, that's additive from when I actually did the wood stove changeout program.
It is. We're always trying to add new options to get folks interested in the program.
Ms. Hola.
So with the new program, I had a couple of people asking me questions. Would that apply to businesses also, if they wanted to change out from fuel oil to natural gas?
Yes, but the incentive levels would remain the same for businesses and commercial operations as they would for residential, which right now the proposed incentive levels are $3,000 for converting an existing appliance into natural gas, like a System 2000 oil boiler, where you can convert the burner and put it in there, and then $9,500 for replacement of the entire appliance, or the incentive levels that were proposed. And I should note that this is all just a proposed ordinance along with the proposed funding, and the Assembly can definitely debate and change the incentive levels or anything that I'm talking about today, so it won't be finalized until next week.
And then is it still within the realm of the program that if you just recently used it to go from a wood stove to a wood stove, and now you want to change up from a wood stove to any other source, that you can still put into the program again?
Yes, you can still put in an application, and then we'll put that application in through the prioritization matrix, and we will, try to work with folks to find out what they're eligible for. If you did a wood stove to a wood stove and you have the cleanest EPA certified wood stove, you're, not going to be eligible for any upgrades to another solid fuel burning appliance, but you'd be eligible for any of the conversions. And so folks can come back in and do the program again and get another new appliance. Yep, and then
One quick question.
Yeah.
On the map. So, as you said, so the purple and the blue, those are air quality control zones, and those are covered under the change-out program.
Yep.
But I'm curious, for the serious SIP, that applies to the entire Fairbanks North Star Borough, right?
it does.
So that
Well,
big, that's a question, because that big patch, like Goldstream and whatnot, that's not included in the control zones, would they at some point be eligible under the change-out program?
yeah, no, and that's a really good question. And so the serious SIP covers the non-attainment area, which is going to be this entire boundary right here.
Right.
And right now, the only eligible geographic area are the blue and the purple shaded areas. So the Goldstream Valley is going to be affected by the regulations
Right.
and does not currently have any funding. And that is, it's something that we discuss on the policy level quite frequently, because those folks are going to be subject to the regulations within the serious SIP, but they don't really, as far as we can ascertain, they don't contribute that much to the problem. And we don't have enough funding to change out every wood stove and oil boiler within the non-attainment area. And so we really have to make that policy decision to focus on the areas that are going to help bring the area into attainment, because it's ultimately it's to improve the air quality. It's unfortunate that there's some regulations and that there's going to be folks that are caught up in that stuff, but it's not a regulatory relief program. It's an air quality improvement program. In the future, that could change if we have enough funding and we're making enough progress that we think we could carve out some funding for those other areas. But right now, I don't know if that's, if or when that's going to happen.
Do you have people coming from that area that you have to turn away?
Yes, we do. And we have people coming from outside of the non-attainment area that we have to turn away. That's the first question that we always ask people when they come in is, I'm glad you're interested in the program. Where do you live so I can find out if you're within the air quality control zone? And there should be you should be able to type in an address and search on that to see if it's, and you can also zoom in to see where your house is located there too. But yeah, it's an interactive tool. But we do have a lot of folks that are outside the non-attainment area that are interested in the program because it does provide such good incentives.
Is University West in the blue area? I can't see from here.
Yes,
It is, okay.
it is.
Yeah. Gene Terrio participated in the program, but he was telling me about how it worked, and it was pretty impressive in University West.
Yeah, we have a lot of folks in University West that go through the program.
Oh, it looks like it goes up the ridge.
Oh, yeah.
I guess the city side of the ridge, but not the back side.
Yeah, because there's Kena Ridge Road is the boundary.
He was very complimentary of the whole thing.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Certainly, it was an easy breezy experience when I did it. I guess I don't want to name the outfit I used. I don't want to give them, undue advantage, but they had it all dialed in. They helped me with the paperwork, all of the paperwork. Yeah, and of course, they had all the appliances there. They helped me with the selection, blah blah blah. I mean, it really was as close to a seamless and no hassle, except for writing a check on my end, process between the borough and the seller of the appliance.
And that was a mechanical contractor that did that?
No.
It was what was the entity that did it?
Well, again, because I went from an old wood stove and a fireplace to pellet stoves, it was one of the pellets, someone who sold pellet stoves, not a mechanical contractor.
Yeah. Oh, and that brings up, some really good points about the program. And it's always great to hear that folks are having good experiences through the program. We do have requirements to use licensed contractors, and the borough goes through and checks the licensing of each contractor, and they have to be registered on sam.gov in order to be a borough-approved vendor that can get reimbursements through the program.
Would that be this borough-listed installer?
That borough-listed installer list. And so for example, for wood-to-wood appliances, the entities have to be NFI, National Fireplace Institute certified, and there's 3 different levels of that. And for installing a natural gas appliance in a fireplace, for example, you have to have the natural gas or propane certification. And so we've gone through and checked all the certifications for all the vendors. For the new program that we're proposing with the oil to gas conversion, we are looking at using the State of Alaska Mechanical Contractor Administrator's License for the requirement to make sure that folks are properly certified to do the work. And we've been checking with the State of Alaska to make sure that that's an appropriate license to have and that folks in Fairbanks have it. And so we'll be doing all that background work for the new program. And the new program, just to give you an idea, it's not going to get nearly the emission reductions of the wood stove changeout program in particulate emissions. If you recall, there, from the 2016 Targeted Airshed Grant, we had 18.5 tons per year. When we're spending $1 million on changing out fuel oil boilers to natural gas or propane, we would be looking at somewhere around 26 pounds per day of SO2 reductions, and the PM benefits would be even smaller. They're 0.36 pounds per day, and so it's really difficult to compare the environmental benefits of these programs, because one of them's reducing primarily sulfur dioxide, and the other one's reducing primarily PM 2.5. While PM 2.5 is the pollutant that we're looking at, primary PM 2.5 is the largest contributor. Secondary formation that forms through atmospheric chemistry is the second largest contributor. It's somewhere around, I think it's about 11 to 17%, depending on which monitor you're at. And so that's something that it's, SO2 reductions alone are not going to get us to attainment, but as we get down to around the 35 microgram level, those SO2 reductions could kick us over that level and ensure that we, do stay in attainment. And so it's an important, emission that doesn't really have any controls on it right now. And
again, the programs have slightly different purposes.
They do, and in addition, the oil to gas program, that works within the broader vision of the community, and this was backed up by the Air Pollution Control Commission and the stakeholders group, and the broad vision of the community to bring affordable natural gas to the community. And this just it helps get folks over to natural gas. We all know that with more volume and more customers, that the affordability of natural gas is going to come down. And so this not only gets emission reduction, but it helps move the community towards that broader vision. Yeah, that strategic goal.
So this draft ordinance, because I did try to do a quick look for it before the meeting, but again, so this is going to be on the docket next Thursday?
This is on the schedule for Thursday.
This Thursday.
For a work session.
Okay.
And so there is, the work session is primarily for the staff to provide the assembly with all of the information and to have a discussion about it. It's not for debate. There is an opportunity for public comment. I believe you can comment on items that are on the agenda, but there's no specific public comment period this week for it. And then next Thursday, it goes to debate and vote. And so that's when, all the, you can come in and comment publicly on the record on this specific ordinance would be next Thursday. And there are two ordinances. One is an appropriation ordinance to take the line of credit from IGU that was, I think it was $6 million, and they are 7.5. Thank you. And they're taking $1 million for this program, and the rest of it they're doing other things with. And so that is that's a separate ordinance than the one that creates the program, and they will be going concurrently. So work session this Thursday, debate and vote next Thursday. And so I definitely encourage folks to come out and listen and comment.
Are you off your schedule on assembly meetings, or am I? I was thinking it was a regular meeting this Thursday.
No, this Thursday is Finance Committee,
Okay.
and then Committee as a whole work session.
Okay, I pay closer attention.
October seemed to have lots of Tuesdays.
That might be it.
This year.
At least four.
At least four, but it just seemed to have an extra, because
Yeah.
I thought I was supposed to be going to an IGU meeting, but it wasn't.
Every fifth Tuesday, the assembly takes off.
Might be,
That
They
is,
should have called me.
Okay, but just so we're clear, if you really wanted to get deeper dive into this. Oh, please, Ms.
Hey, Jomo. I was going to say, just pulling up our calendar that, the Assembly does have 5 to 7 blocked out for their finance meeting, so they know what the heck they're talking about there. So.
Okay, thank you,
Anyway.
Miss.
All right. Yep, you bet, sir.
I assumed he did, but again, if you want to do a deep dive, get the information regarding what this proposal is, from a staff perspective, from an administration perspective, this Thursday would be the day, and then if you'd like to come comment on it or see how the Assembly acts on it, that would be next Thursday.
Correct.
Okay.
And just to piggyback, the IGU gives a quarterly report to the Assembly, and that's scheduled for this Thursday as well.
Yep.
So this dovetails really well together.
Okay. So we can do I guess I'll be doing a natural gas deep dive on Thursday. Okay. All right. Now, will there be any further discussion, or is there any further discussion before the Assembly regarding the targeted airshed grants themselves, or they're up and running and good to go?
They're up and running and good to go. The 2018 targeted airshed grant, let's see, that DEC, last week, I believe last Thursday or Friday, DEC received the budget authority from the state legislature, and they are starting on the RSA to Department of Commerce. We have to go through all the different departments and jump through all the hoops to get these set up, and then the borough will do an official appropriation in January, and then that funding will be made available. And so it takes a couple months to get the program up and running once the award is announced.
And that would be that most recent $5 million.
That would be that most recent $5 million. We're not super worried about it because we have $6.7 million, and we're, running the program right now. And so that'll be in place long before that money gets expended, so we should be set up pretty well.
Okay. And then finally, questions. So Ms. Holloway.
And a question on that, so if the ordinance passes for the $1 million, we're looking at that money possibly being in place and people being able to participate in that program. About what time frame?
I would say that it would take us probably 2 months to stand the program to get it up and running, because while we've done a little bit of the background work in setting up the vendor lists, we're still not fully prepared with vendor lists and applications yet, because, well, it's not worth it to do the work right now and either have it, not approved at the Assembly level or significantly modified. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to get all this stuff set up. 1 to 2 months would be.
So basically, would work right in line with the time frame for when the tank is up and going and the applications are coming in through the front.
Yeah.
What seasonally when people would be probably in a position to do the work or have the work done?
We would definitely, if this passes, we would definitely be up and running for the spring construction season.
I was going to shift with Nick here and just even 2 minutes on Serious SIP timing and just how things are going.
Yeah, I think things are going well with the Serious SIP. The state has been working very diligently, and the borough's been assisting where they can to get the comments addressed on the Serious SIP and to get that document put together. The state, I believe, is committed to getting the Serious SIP submitted to EPA in the middle of December.
Oh,
right next month.
Yeah, I was thinking it was being postponed more, but no, they're pressing to make it in mid.
Yep, they are pressing to make it in December, to get that in for, a variety of reasons. There is the lawsuit that's out there. And, luckily, even though the state missed the deadline to get the Serious SIP in, which is a trigger point for sanctions, EPA has still not made a finding of failure to submit, and so that's very beneficial and shows that EPA Region 10 is working with the community because they haven't started that sanction clock. Once time ticks off that sanction clock, you never get it back, and so that's something that we're always watching really closely. And then once the Serious SIP gets in, then, hopefully that, fear is lifted. But also, we have to get another 5% SIP out for public comment in May of 2020. And so that's not very much time to prepare another SIP.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so there will be continuing work on the SIP.
I'm sitting here next to Michelle, I can hear her gears running, so let's see if I'm translating what I'm hearing. So, as I understand it, there's 6.7 million available for, in my world, gas conversions, correct? Today.
Correct. Yes, it's all that 6.7 is all eligible for gas.
Okay. And then we're gonna get another million, so we're now at 7.7 million. Okay.
Pending assembly approval.
And then, is there now a 2019 that's coming along, the expectations of further funding? Is there another tranche in 2019?
There is another targeted airshed grant that will come out. We have been in close coordination with EPA to find the timing on that.
Okay.
The application, the call for applications has not been released. Typically, when that goes out, we'll have about a month and a half to get the applications pulled together and then submitted, and then EPA will score them. We don't know the funding amount, but it's probably somewhere around 5 to 6 million per grant, and we will probably be eligible to submit 2 applications. And I don't know how much of that funding would be specifically earmarked for conversions, just because we have a lot of funding in there for conversions, and we have 3 targeted airshed grants, and they are competitive. And so we need to, be thoughtful and find ways to be competitive and, continue the funding for the conversions, but find new things to do so that we can, get the most funding.
Okay. So the worst would happen is you don't get anything.
Yep.
So we're stuck at 7.7.
Yep.
The best, given all the good work you've done over the last 3 years, you could probably expect there would be some level similar to past appropriations that would come our way. So there's another 4 million, let's say. So that then leads me, if that's some question. So you said that, Paul, that your burn rate is about 350, your target 350,000 per quarter.
Correct.
Okay, and you've got 7.7 in your pocket today. So that's 5.5 years of available funding.
Mm-hmm.
So my question, with my natural gas hat on and listening to Michelle's ears, what can IGU do to help you make that burn rate? How can we help you spend more money? And what is
And faster.
Is the 350 a formula, or is it a subjective number that you could move up and we could backfill with an effort to spend more of that?
Well, it's more demand, it's demand driven.
Yeah, no, it's demand driven, and really the 350 a quarter is what we have to, what we need to meet for our projections to keep up with our expenditure rate to ensure that we get those grants expended on the 5-year timeline, which is why
It's a floor.
Yeah.
Desirable floor.
It's a desirable floor, and there's a couple things that go into limiting how much we can spend and how fast we can spend the money. Number one, it's getting the word out, doing marketing and education outreach and marketing about the program to get the people in, because we have to get the people to learn about the program and get them through the door, first off. The second that we're running into is, reaching the capacity of the vendors in the area that are qualified for reimbursements. There is at least one vendor that has a 2 to 3 month backlog, and so we're starting to reach vendor capacity for some of this. And then the other piece is staffing capacity from the borough side, because we do have to receive and process all of the applications and review them. And with those 3 things, I think the biggest thing that IGU could help with is the marketing and getting the word out there. And then, the other two things are a little bit more difficult to work on with vendor capacity and with borough capacity. But I would say we just brought a new employee on specifically to deal with administrative aspects of the change-out program. So we should, at the borough side, be able to handle additional capacity in the coming years.
So you're debottlenecking on that end?
Yeah.
So we can drive that 350 to 550 if we want.
Yes, we can, and I would encourage
Right
it.
here, and she's the one that's charged to do that. So, okay, well, that's really good.
Neither the state nor the EPA would mind at all if Gary reached 550.
Yeah, if we reached 550 a quarter, that would be fantastic.
Okay, tonight at our IG meeting, one of the big agenda items is Michelle talking about marketing. And so this is really good information, and I appreciate it very much. This is gonna be repeated tonight, and it sounds to me like the more we can drive, the more money we've got to put fuel in the tank.
Yep.
Well, there had been a question regarding capacity within the installation sector, vis-a-vis demand. You know, again, did we have a lot of demand, but we didn't have enough installers? Do we have lots of installers sitting around idle because there isn't demand? So that's an outstanding question.
Nobody from Anchorage has shown up yet. There's been discussion about Anchorage folk coming up and setting up the shop, buying a mass order of gas furnaces.
Mm-hmm.
That's been done down there, so that's only rumor, speculation.
Yeah, and, you know, any feedback that, you know, you guys have on our requirements for becoming a borough-listed vendor, which right now are the mechanical administrator license, and there's, I think, there's several different specialties within that mechanical administrator license. And we talked with the state licensing group. I can't, off the top of my head, recall what that department is right now, but they suggested a couple of different divisions there that we could go with, and I can share you that information, and just want to make sure that we're on the right page with what we're requiring the vendors to do to be certified, and make sure that anybody that's coming up from Anchorage, that they know that they need to have that certification so that we can get the correct installation on those.
Thank you.
Well, excellent. Further questions? Well, Mr. Czarnecki, as always, thank you so much. I guess we'll all be seeing you on Thursday. I know I will. Repeated Thursdays. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Again, we do have a meeting next week, and actually we're having gas days, so we'll be having Mr. Britton or someone, a representative of the IGU, to give us an update regarding the interior gas utility and advancements of the interior energy project. All right, with that, everybody have a great evening. Oh, by the way, if you really want to do a deep dive on gas, the IGU does have their board meeting this evening. It's over at the KeyBank building, commences at 4 p.m. So you can always go over and watch their board meetings. They are open to the public. All right, with that, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, thanks a million, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.